Okay, so it is 7 o'clock somewhere. It is 7 o'clock. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. Just a friendly reminder, if you have cell phones with you, please turn them off, silent, airplane mode, so they don't disrupt the meeting. And second, I'd like to ask that you join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. So welcome, everybody, and thank you for those of you watching on YouTube later on. I'm going to start out with some introductions. I'm Lisa Whalen, I'm the mayor, and to my left are council members Kathleen Refkin and Ann McGregor. This evening we have two council members that are absent, Peter Vickery and Claudia Lacey. And then on the end we have our city engineer with WSB, Allison Fauski, and then we have our director of public works, Gary Peters, and then we have our city clerk, or sitting in as our city clerk, we have Angie Bohl. And then to my right, we have our city administrator, Jasper Krugel, our finance director, Brian Grimm, our community development director, David Abel, and then Sarah Sansala is our city attorney with Kennedy and Graven. And then last but certainly not least, our chief of police, Paul Falls. With that, are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 3-0. Next, we have with us this evening a very special guest. We have Representative Andrew Myers, who represents our district. Welcome, Mr. Myers, and thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was several years ago that I was sitting in these spots. I was never a mayor. But I always start these out with, this is a very thankless job for you guys. You got a pretty big city here, and I applaud you guys for stepping up, serving your community. And that's something that I take to heart every day when I try to serve in this role. Trying to represent the people of the entire community. So, we did have a very busy legislative session. I'm a new member, so for me, I didn't really have anything to gauge it by, but from what I heard from a lot of people, it was very busy. So I'm just saying, this seems normal. But what I want to do is highlight some of the things that impacted cities in particular, 11 cities in the district, Minnetrista being one of those. So for you guys specifically, which is what everybody kind of wants to know, is local aid. So there'd be $460,000 for Minnetrista. The planned fund release for that is early 2024. There is a one-time public safety funding, which I'm sure the chief and you guys are excited about, but that's roughly $376,000, which is supposed to be October. I haven't gotten an update if that's changed or not. So you're looking at roughly $830,000 of new funding.
I don't think we get local aid.
Yeah, for local government aid, I think we get zero. The 372 is the one-time police funding.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think there's some transportation dollars that are going to be available this year.
Oh, okay.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can talk more after that as well.
So Representative Myers, are those transportation dollars strictly for roads? Do you know what they
There
can be
is some
used for?
flexibility with that.
Okay.
We can look a little bit more into that.
Okay.
I know I've worked with Jasper on some of the bonding requests that you guys are doing for those infrastructure pieces.
For the water, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
but those are much bigger dollars.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And leading up to that is we did get a bonding bill passed this year. I know they didn't have one all of last session. Roughly 2.3 million. I did secure roughly 10 million for Mound. I'm hopeful that we can get you guys on the bonding tour. That is in, I believe, November for the Twin Cities suburbs. I haven't heard if we've been picked or not. If we do get picked for Minnetrista, I will be reaching out because we like to do something special so that when people come here, they can remember Minnetrista and what it's about. So we can look more at that if it gets chosen.
Absolutely.
And I know right now Jasper did submit that documentation.
Mm-hmm.
It's roughly $18.5 million for that water project. Okay. A few other things that passed that will impact the cities is we saw paid family leave pass, which will affect employees here, will ultimately affect what your guys' budgets will be. We did see in part to the comprehensive plans that have to be passed, we're also going to have to do do a climate action plan. And I've heard from some of the smaller cities that they want me to go out and talk to maybe Hennepin County, because that can be a big cost burden
Sure,
on some
absolutely.
of these cities. And so if there's something that we can do at more at county level that can be brought down to some of the smaller cities to help save that funding and come up with something, I'm gonna be looking into that, but I would love to get your guys' feedback on that as well. Also, we're seeing kind of at a state level more centralization of state collecting funds and then they be distributed down to the city. We saw that in the local option sales tax. They put a moratorium on that for 2 years while they look into that. So that can affect some cities like yours, other cities like Minnetonka Beach it wouldn't affect because they really don't have any businesses there. Finally, we saw recreational cannabis pass. I'm sure I've seen it every single city. You know, they're addressing it the way that they see fit. We'd like to see a little bit more local control. I made sure to reach out to all my mayors to get their impact and their thoughts of what they would like to see in their city. So that helped me a lot of times make decisions. And that's how I make decisions a lot, is reaching out to boots on the ground. If it's an education bill, I'm talking to our superintendents. If it's a public safety bill, we're talking to our police chiefs. And that's kind of what I'm going to continue to do and represent in a way that allows me to operationally look at these bills and make sure that they're going to be implemented in a way that will work, you know, for as many people as, you know, they can. You know, and as always, I really try to make myself available. If anybody needs to get a hold of me or any citizens need to get a hold of me, my cell phone number is 612-615-8444. Try to make the presentation short and sweet because I want to know any questions that you guys have. That's the biggest thing for me, to understand what, you know, you guys are going through here and what you may need some help with.
So a couple things.
Sure.
But thank you, thank you. And we really did appreciate your helping us or putting forth the bonding bill for us this year. Hopefully we'll get something out of it next year.
And they're supposed to be doing a bill. It's not going to be 2.3 billion.
Yeah.
I think they were saying it's 300 to 500 million.
Yeah.
So there's going to be an opportunity there.
Okay. So here's the thing. You talked about the moratorium on the sales tax applications. So currently we don't have a lot, but if they do a moratorium for 2 years, that means we wouldn't even be able to apply for another 3 years, which means that we are now starting to see a little bit of commercial in our city, and it certainly would be nice if we could capitalize on that. And so if there's anything that can be done to reduce the moratorium from 2 years down to 0 or 1.
Yeah, so
Anyhow.
yeah, Chair Gomez in the House you know, I had to talk to her a lot because I ended up getting one in for Excelsior.
Right.
That was more of a renewal because they had it
Right.
before.
Yep.
She really doesn't like them. So, you know, I was happy to get that in at the last minute.
And I know they don't like them. I know.
She
But
she wants to form that task force, so I don't know if it's so that somebody else can make that decision.
Okay.
But you know, it's one of those things that for me, that brings it back down to
The local
control.
level,
I mean,
right.
You guys, and you know, it's going to go to a referendum.
Yeah.
They have to vote on that. So, you know, I'm a believer that, you know, if this is what the local cities and the officials are pushing for, ultimately, it's going to go to the voters. So I am supportive of those. I'll do what I can.
Okay.
But I'm in the minority. So
I know. Okay.
you know, I build in relationships and I've been fairly successful, but I will make sure to work on that as well.
So the other thing is, again, thank you for the Highway 7, or we are interested in the Highway 7 Safety Coalition. And so do you know where that's at? Do you know what the next steps are?
So yeah, we got the bill from the Senate side and the House side. It was approved. It's roughly $750,000. Myself, Senator Morrison, Representative Acomb over on the other side of 45 are involved in that. Really been trying to stay on mark with MnDOT. You know, I've got a mayor in a couple of my other cities that have had some dramatic issues.
Right.
Right
Shorewood,
away.
Minnetonka.
And
Yep.
so I've been trying to assist Mayor Labadie in that community to figure out if there's some short-term solutions. Because right now they're looking at doing that pavement. And I don't know if it was 2028 and it got moved up to 2026 or if it's still stuck at 2028. But there are some short-term solutions that we're looking at. Again, you got to balance out the cost dollars
Right.
to those. But in the back of my mind is, as you drive out here, we do have a lot of development. And what we don't want to do, I think, is put something in that may have to be changed in the very near future because of the development, the amount of traffic. But it's something they are looking from St. Bonnie all the way, you know, past my district into Minnetonka into Hopkins. needs.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. So we appreciate that, and we will be looking, finding out more details on that and participating in that if that comes to fruition. The other thing, so you were talking about local authority, and I'm glad you said you are all in favor of local authority, because I think we are too. So I know that the Housing First opposes, or we would like you to oppose their bills regarding local authority on zoning and planning.
Yeah.
We feel that is definitely a local issue and not a state issue, and that we know better what is better for our communities than people at the state level. So we would like to ask that you oppose any of those bills that come along for that.
Yeah, and so I got a lot of feedback when a colleague from my side of the aisle carried that amendment.
Exactly.
And making sure that I got those responses. And the type of person I am is I went to my colleague and I said, I'm just giving you a heads up because I'll be voting no on this amendment. Again, the feedback that you guys provide is very important. I do sit on the housing committee, and we do. Housing in Minnesota is expensive. You look at Illinois, and I think we're $150,000 more per house for the same size house. And to me, it's really falls upon those local cities to maybe work with, if it's Housing First or your engineers, to look and see what are the options that we're looking for the housing opportunities we need in our community. Because what you need is going to be very different than in my city, in Tampa Bay or in Mao. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Then the other thing is, again, one of the issues I think that many of the chiefs and police have is the bill that was passed for public safety SROs. And again, I don't think there was a lot of input from the chief, let's say the chiefs and police on that one. What can be done to improve that? Because it's pretty difficult for our SROs now to operate in our school districts and our schools.
Yeah, and I have spoken with Chief Folan over in South Lake, Farniak in Orono. I can't remember Scott's last name in Minnetonka, and then speaking also to the superintendents of the state of Minnetonka, Chase Anderson. What we're trying to do is ask for a special session. I'm not here to finger point at people, but there was a law that passed which has made it that officers and even teachers are put in a situation. And this isn't just the safety of our children. This is workplace safety for our teachers. We want to make sure we're supporting our teachers and that we're keeping a safe place for them to work. I'm frustrated with it, but I'm trying to reach across the aisle again to my senator to see if we can have that special session. The governor seemed to come out in one of his interviews and say, yes, this is something that needs to be fixed. Some people say it's not a problem. We've got over 50 departments in the state that have removed their officers.
Right.
That is including Ramsey County and Dewana-Witt and Hennepin County. So when you've got the Hennepin County sheriffs starting to weigh in, clearly something needs to be done, and there's a fix to this. Okay. So I'm hopeful that we can get there, and hopefully it's this month. So I'm hoping for a special session in September.
Okay.
And
keep your fingers crossed.
Do you guys have a proposal prepared for if there is one called?
So I know the Chiefs Association, MPPOA, is working on some bill language right now. Again, being in the minority, all we can do is say, hey, this is the issue. We know it needs to be corrected. Let's work together to get this corrected. Being a new member, I don't know if it's going to be a one-day session, it's going to be a week-long session, but it's getting the governor, it's getting the Senate majority leader, minority leader, and the House majority and minority leader together so that we can call that session and make sure it's, we can take care of that specific issue.
Do you know, is Senator Morrison in favor of a special session?
I don't know if she is or not. I've reached out to the rep in Chanhassen, trying to see if she's in favor of it. It's one of those things that it is just every week you're hearing more and more SROs are pulling out.
Mm-hmm.
All I can do is have our local officials, have our superintendents, have our police chiefs continue to reach out to those representatives with the hope that we can't do it alone on the minority side, so we need some people on the majority side to get this done.
So really appreciate it. Don't mean to grill you so much.
No,
but,
this is what it's about.
So, and if
Luckily,
there's,
I have most of the answers.
so yeah, if you can get back to us on that 460,000 local aid,
Sure.
and when that would be coming, and if that is for roads, it would be greatly appreciated. And then, of course, anytime anything comes up where we could get more funding for roads, that would be great. That is one of our big issues here in the city. And the other, just real quick, I know it's been talked about, but street utility fee. I know that's not a very popular thing, but
Okay.
you know, it might be something worth discussing.
Okay.
We have to do special assessments here in our community in order to be able to fund our roads, a lot of our roads. So maybe a street utility fee might be a better option.
Okay.
And again, we can talk offline about that a little bit.
And going back to the Highway 7 safety, I'd really like to better understand the development that's going on. Are there more access points you guys are looking to provide to Highway 7? And we can talk about that later. I know
Okay.
from door knocking, it was the roundabout was a 2-lane, no, it was a 1-lane. So you get a lot of feedback from people, but you always want to make sure that you ask the question.
And, you know, it'd be great, especially, I know Jennifer, Mayor Labadie and also Mayor in Minnetonka, they really would like to have a coalition started. And I think that would be a good first step as well. So then we could address, and I'd be happy to be a part of that, so that we can address the safety issues all along, all the way from 101 all the way through St. Bonnie.
And they did that on 212, and it was very effective.
It was very effective. So if you can keep us posted on that, and I can talk to those mayors as well. So that'd be great. Again, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Have a great night. Thank you.
All right. That concludes our special presentations. We'll move on to persons to be heard. We have, okay, Kaylee and okay, no, that's you guys. You don't need to sign up. You're on the agenda. All right. I have 3 people signed up here under persons to be heard for the Enchanted Lane variance. Would you like, you can speak now if you'd like, but what I was going to do under that agenda item is I was going to have our staff give a presentation. Council can ask some questions, and then the applicant will give their input or give a presentation, and we can ask them questions, and then the council can discuss this so that you can see what direction we might be going in. And if you feel at that time you would still like to make some comments, I will open it up and you can make a few comments at that time if that would be okay. So with that, we'll move on to our business items, to consent agenda. And they consist, there's A through G. Are there any that need to be removed? All right. So consent agenda items include A, approve our work session meeting minutes from August 21st, 2023. B is our city council regular meeting minutes from August 21st, 2023. C is a resolution to approve claims. D is approve a conditional offer of employment to Ann Meyerhoff for the city clerk position. E is a resolution to approve the lakeshore setback variance at 3316 Williams Lane. F is a resolution to approve a guest house conditional use permit at 400 North Branch Road. And G is a resolution to approve a conditional use permit for an accessory building over 1,000 square feet at 905 Maple Crest Drive. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 3-0. We don't have any public hearings this evening, so we'll move on to our business items. First item is our budget process approvals. Under A, so we're going to be approving the preliminary tax levy, and we're also going to be approve the debt levy. And I'm going to and then we'll also do approve the date for public comments on our levy. So
Yep.
with that, Brian.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. So we had a good discussion of this in the work session as well as a couple meetings in August. So I guess just in summary, the resolution, I believe on page 73, looks to approve a preliminary gross tax levy of $6,693,104. It's about a 14.33% increase to the gross tax levy, about a 15.1% to the net levy. I don't know if the council has any questions. There was obviously a lot of factors as far as, a lot of the different personnel services, union contracts, et cetera, that is kind of roads that, as discussed, is covered in this preliminary levy. levy that's certified now will, go out, people get their truth in taxation, their public comment notices in November and have a chance to comment in December. And we'll, as a council and staff, be looking at the budget and levy further over the next couple of months too, so a few months.
Yeah, we've discussed this a couple of times now at work sessions. I don't think we have any questions at this point. Again, this is the preliminary levy. It will be discussed between now and December, on and off again, and then we'll bring it back December 4th for our final approval, which could be less than what we are currently proposing. And so we can't raise it, but we can always lower it between now and December 4th. Okay?
Yep, so I guess, yeah, the resolution, it was attached on page 74, so if council so chooses, we'd be looking for that to be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion then to approve the preliminary tax levy as presented in our
So
packet?
moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. So next we have our debt levy at 100% for our bond payments.
Correct, yeah, Madam Mayor and Council. So, yeah, statute allows us to levy for 105% of our principal interest payments on our debt levies. And historically, in the past, we've performed well enough with our tax collections and such that we've been able to levy just 100%, and we are looking to do that on all of them except the one fund is noted in the packet on the Maple Crest Debt Fund, to do that at 105%, but to do the other levies at 100%. And by doing this, it's something we have to do to satisfy the county that we're not levying for the maximum amount, and it is about a $50,000, I guess, difference if we would levy for that additional amount. So I guess it's savings from the what we could be levying, I guess, for
Right.
summary. So I guess we'd be looking for a resolution just to memorialize that. So.
Okay. Any other questions? You're pros at this by now, so. All right. Then do I have a motion to approve the debt levy at 100% of the 2024 bond payments?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Can't imagine who's going to make the first and second here. All right. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. So next we have setting the date for the public comments on the 2024 levy and budget. So we'll set that date for December 4th. It'll be at 7 o'clock at a regular meeting. At that meeting, Brian, you'll be giving us like pie charts and what this means for the average homeowner and things like that,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, the tax impacts.
Okay, the
slides
tax
and-
impacts, okay.
Yep.
And then when we do that, then we'll open it up for a public hearing and people can make comments. So, all right.
Correct. Yep.
Any other comments?
No, that's just pretty much per statute. It just has to be sometime after November 24th, so people have received all their public comment notices, their preliminary tax bills, and then we have our one scheduled meeting in December for December 4th. And then, yeah, it just has to be after 6 p.m., which we'd be setting it at 7 p.m. So.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion to approve December 4th at 7 p.m. for the public comments for the 2024 levy and budget?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Any further comments? All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. So next we have a review of our concept sketch plan for Outlot C and Woodland Cove Commercial Development. I believe that's David.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Application has been submitted for a concept sketch plan review for a possible commercial development of Outlot C and Woodland Cove. As you'll see on the screen there, Outlot C is the first lot on the east side of Kings Point Road as you enter the Woodland Cove development. The applicant is proposing to build roughly a 5,000 square foot building with space for 3 separate businesses. As you probably noted from the narrative that was submitted with the application, the development, the building itself, what they're calling an old town feel that is warm and inviting with a modern touch. And there was some good elevations and such provided in your packet to give you a good idea of what the building might look like. The proposed building will be anchored by a quick service restaurant with a drive-through, as you saw on the plan. There will also be a retail business space with an area focused on commercial kitchen, and actually called out, a business name is called out Honey and Milk. which was also described in the narrative and with some background information about what that business is and what they'd be doing there with that commercial cooking kitchen that is being proposed there. The Planning Commission reviewed their plan at the August 28th meeting. The consensus of the Planning Commission was that it is a viable plan. They talked about some of the standard stuff, parking, stormwater, those sorts of things. Again, this is a concept sketch plan. That detail will get looked at if they were to move forward to a site plan. As with any site plans with commercial development, city staff and the city engineer will take a look at that as further detail gets provided. But as I said, as a consensus, they thought it was a viable plan. It was a good plan, and they welcomed it to this area. Just as a reminder, the concept plan is an opportunity for the council to provide guidance for the applicant mostly as they work towards the next step, which would be a site plan review, which would be brought back then to city council with, again, would be some further detail about stormwater and those sorts of things. But generally, again, it's a sketch plan, so the more comments, the better at this point to help guide the applicant to the next step. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any
So-
questions of staff?
That says Outlot C, and that's behind Mac and Thune,
Just
but
zoom
it's
out.
actually,
It's the one down,
Yeah.
zoom out a little bit, please, yeah.
so are there two Outlot Cs?
Yeah,
Okay.
different, yes, correct, because they're different phases.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just making sure.
It'd be down on the right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions of staff? Otherwise, the applicant is here, if you'd like them to speak.
Do you guys have ideas for the restaurant on the end?
Mr. Lau, maybe you can come and answer a few questions.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is David Lau, and do I have to state my address?
Sure, that'd be great.
2640
Sorry.
Center Circle in Mount. And so, well, basically, I just wanted to emphasize this project is like driven by like the needs of the community, and also, you know, my son and daughter-in-law, they live in Woodland Cove, and they plan to run a business there. So that is the basic incentive. It's not some people from outside trying to, you know, maximize their profit and so on. So that's completely not the intent. So so we try to be very sensitive to the needs of the community in terms of, first in terms of traffic, you know, where the traffic would come in and go out and so on. And we look at the traffic study that was done for the Macantune market, and, you know, look at the different, you know, so we thought this would be a pretty good fit. And in terms of the types of businesses, I think, you know, if you live in Woodland Cove, you wanted to eat out, you have to drive at least 10, 15 minutes each way, you know, and so we wanted to have like a good quality restaurant, and also like some kind of business or service. You know, we've been approached by people like maybe a health spa or something, you know. So we hope this would bring more convenience to the people living in Woodland Cove, and try to do it in a sensitive and you know, way.
So do you have anybody interested for the restaurant portion of this?
We're still working with our broker. He's
Okay.
reaching out to different, you know, people.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
No, I live in Woodland Cove. I think this is great, so I'm all for this.
It looks really nice. One of my comments is at the corner of Woodland Cove and Kings Point Road. I know there's somewhat of a hill, and when you're coming out, there's a bit of a sightline issue that's been mentioned by residents there. That should maybe be addressed with this development. I don't know exactly what you want to do. I don't know if a turn lane is required there or not, but I think that would have to be looked at. And again, that's something our engineer can look at. But again, I know a lot of these things, such as stormwater ponding and that, and will be taken care of in the next phase. But it's a great concept, I think. We need more commercial, as we just said. And yeah, I don't think and the planning commission was in favor of it. They didn't have a lot of issues with it either. One of my suggestions, of course, is going to be some nice vegetation on let's see, that would be the east side to buffer between your development and then the existing townhomes. So that would be something to keep in mind. Other than that, I think it's great.
I agree.
Okay, thank you for your
All right,
comment.
thank you. So we don't need to take any action on this, but that just gives you direction, and we'll see you back here. All right.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. So next we have a variance. We have two variances, one at 3790 Enchanted Lane and one at 3800 Enchanted Lane. And do we want to talk about these together?
Well, I'll start, why don't we just start with one and see where the conversation goes?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the 3790 Enchanted Lane variance. And again, so like I said, David's going to give his presentation. We'll ask him questions if need be. If the applicant needs to add anything, they can do that at that time. And then if we'll have this discussion, and if you wish to make any additional comments, we do have all of your comments in writing form, and we have in our packet. We've had a chance to review those, and we also have the Planning Commission draft minutes in our packet as well. So the council is aware of what the planning commissioners discussed, and also aware of not only just the people here this evening, but also of people that were here for the public hearing. This is a public meeting. I just want to clarify one thing. This is a public meeting, but it's not a public hearing. So there's a little bit of a difference. However, we will state, if need be, take some public comment as well. With that, David?
Yes, thank you again, Madam Mayor, members of council. We do have an application for multiple variances to construct a new single-family residence at 3790 Enchanted Lane. The applicant has entered into a purchase agreement to purchase the property along with the property adjacent at 3800 Enchanted Lane. The first property here, 3790, is a 17,464 square foot lot that previously contained a single-family dwelling and a detached garage. Both of those structures did not comply with city code requirements for setbacks. The previous structures have been torn down by the current owners while the lot was put on the market for sale. So both lots actually are currently sitting as vacant. Specifically, the variances that are being requested with 3790 to construct a new single-family home, you're looking at a lakeside setback variance from 75 feet to 41 feet, a street side setback variance from 35 feet to 26.3, a side yard setback variance from 15 feet to 6.1 feet, and on the other side yard, you're looking at 15 feet to 10.1 feet. As outlined in the staff report, City Code Section 505.05 Subdivision 9 does allow the city to issue variances from the provisions of our zoning ordinance, and per state statute and city code, a variance may be granted when someone establishes that there are practical difficulties in complying with the city ordinances. As you can see from the staff report, the three criteria that are in city code and state statute regarding practical difficulties are explained there. They're outlined, as I said, and located in your packet. As you mentioned, Mayor, there was written comment. 7 written comments were submitted as a result of our public hearing that we sent out, and those comments, as I said, are in your packet. The Planning Commission reviewed the request and held a public hearing at their August 28th meeting, and the commission did make a motion to recommend that the council deny the requested variances. The motion passed with a 5-to-1 vote, and as you mentioned, Mayor, there is a recap of the meeting and a draft copy of the Planning Commission minutes. Again, that's draft. It hasn't been approved by the Planning Commission, but the minutes are there for your review and to understand what went down during that public hearing. So with that, based on what has transpired with the comments, the public hearing, and the recommendation of the Planning Commission, you'll notice from your agenda and the staff report, we don't have resolutions in there for you. So what staff's looking for tonight is direction, guidance as to what might be a suitable resolution to bring back to you at a future meeting. One option would be approve the variances as presented. Another would be to deny them as presented, or you could do a combination of approve some of the variances and deny some of the others. Those are three options that would be presented before you tonight. And again, we'd be looking for direction from the council so we can bring back a suitable resolution. One other thing I wanted to note that came up, I'm sure council's well aware of this, but it came up a few times during the planning commission meeting, and I just want to clarify that there has been and there is 2 lots of record. So there's 2 lots that are there, they've been there. We cannot force that anybody to combine lots, just as I'm sure the council's well aware of that. I just want to clarify that point because it did seem to come up a little bit during the planning commission. So again, just a point of clarification. That's all I have this evening for you, Mayor and Council, so we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. I just have a question. Maybe Ms. Sensala can answer as well. You said we had 3 options, deny, approve, or a combination. But Ms. Sensala, can you tell us, we wouldn't really be denying or approving a combination. Wouldn't that have to come back as a new application?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, there really are 3 separate variances before you for each property. So, for example, you could approve the lakeshore variance and the right-of-way variance, but deny the side yard setback variance.
Okay.
So, in that case, we would prepare a resolution approving probably the 2 variances and then denying the 1 variance. And
Okay.
then depending on
That's
what you do
what-
with the other property, similar. So.
Okay.
It just kind of depends on if you want to bifurcate the variances or not, and we'd have to prepare separate resolutions.
All
But
right.
you can't change
You
what they're
can't
asking
change
for.
the
Yes.
application, correct?
So you
right.
can't say, well, they wanted 6 feet and we're going to say
We'll
10.
approve
Yeah,
10 or whatever.
that would be
Okay.
something they would need to amend their application or at least or
Right.
withdraw their current application and bring back a new application, and that would need to go back before the planning commission with another public hearing.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions of staff? All right, so if the applicant is here, I see you're here this evening. If you'd like to come forward and state your name and address for the record, and
Good evening,
Good.
Nathan Fair. My address is 13432 Hanson Boulevard, Andover, Minnesota. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. Appreciate it. I certainly was not prepared at the Planning Commission to have multiple neighbors come out. So what I'd like to do is hopefully slow down tonight and try and answer the questions that came up at the Planning Commission. Since then, we've also spent some additional money just to hopefully show the council and the public what these homes will actually look like. What I felt like at the Planning Commission, everyone was really concerned about how big the homes are going to be. It doesn't fit the neighborhood feel. So what I'd like to do, I don't know, David, do you have it electronically? Did Nick forward you the PDF of the artist renderings?
He did not.
Okay.
But we
If I
have
can I
them.
have it
Oh.
out? A visual,
Yep.
here's a visual.
Thank you. That's all right, here, we'll share.
I guess old school, you don't have an overhead, and so
We don't.
Sorry.
they could hold it up.
But what I wanted to share with the public was, this is a true scaled visual model of what our current homes would look like on the 2 individual lots. I want to give Nick a lot of credit. Your staff worked really hard with me on the front end. Before I put the land even under application, I talked to Nick and said, okay, Nick, we have a very unique situation with one very, very narrow lot. And Nick and I talked it through. He said, Nathan, if you're gonna go through this, you have to be very careful on what you design. I want the council to understand the previous cabin was 4.2 feet off the property line. So when Nick and I went back and forth, we talked about, okay, we need to make sure it's not gonna be 4 feet. You gotta give something. So working with our architects, we came up with 2 floor plans that we feel are saleable in today's market, but also will fit into the neighborhood. Again, I took away from the Planning Commission that folks thought these were gonna be mansions. It should be noted, the foundation size on the smaller lot is 1,700 square feet. The foundation size on the larger lot, which does have a larger setback, and again, 2 separate applications, so we can kind of hopefully we'll talk about both right now. The larger lot would be my own personal house for my family, but there is a 10-foot setback on the larger lot and a 6-foot setback in between the two new homes. And then there's a 6-foot setback against the home that was built in 2019. Since the Planning Commission also, I went back and pulled a bunch of data, because I was not prepared for the neighbors to come out. There's 7 homes in a row on this little block. 6 out of 7 homes do not meet the 15-foot side yard setback right now. And I think that's important to note for the council, because there are additional cabins that will be torn down in the future. One particular lot, 3 lots down, is 52 feet wide. If that particular lot is rebuilt on and you do a 15-foot setback and a 15-foot setback, you're in the same situation that we have with our small lot. You end up with that 19-foot building pad. It's not physically possible to design a house on a 19-foot wide building pad. There's hardships on any lake lots. We have a very high water table here, and we do have bad soils, so these homes will be built on pilings, just like the house that was built to the south in 2019. Which again, I appreciate that neighbor reaching out to me. I reached out to the neighbor and just asked him, I'm new here, give me the history. And he said, when we built our house, we didn't realize there was bad soils. So I appreciate that. And then Nick challenged me, he said, Nate, before you go through a whole design, let's get soil borings to make sure these lots are even buildable. So we did our soil borings. There's a lot of time and energy that we put into this. And I think staff did a good job of just making sure the council and the planning commission and the public understands. These are 2 legal lots of record. The trust, great residents here for years, paid taxes, paid the sewer hookups. I would really like to build my family a house here in Minnetrista. And we feel that we have a very saleable, empty nester type home on this smaller lot. It's very important that we have a main floor master. We think we know who our market is. It's not a McMansion. I have to walk a fine line. I'm hopefully going to be living here, and I want to make sure that my neighbors are welcoming me. I have 2 young kids, but we've been looking for a long time. We like the feel here. This is a quiet little island. I have a boy with special needs, so this is a quiet little street. I want to address a couple other items that came out quickly. Parking. Our driveway length is 26 feet, no different than my neighbor's driveway length. These are 2-car garages. We have adequate parking in our garages, and we're going to have adequate parking in our driveways. Also, fire safety came up. I wasn't aware there's no fire hydrants on this island. But what I can tell staff, and it can be a condition, that's important to me. In my current house right now, I have a fire suppression system. And that's frankly because of my boy with special needs. But both of these homes, we're willing to put a fire sprinkler system in there. Because these homes are a little bit closer. They're gonna be 6 foot off the property line and 6 foot off the property line, 12 feet apart. We're okay doing a fire sprinkler system to make sure that helps with the public safety aspect. With that being said, we are a larger builder. We're the largest home builder in Minneapolis. On the custom side, Hanson Builders out of Andover. We build in Plymouth all the time with side yard setbacks this close. In fact, a lot of cities, it's 5 foot off the property and 10 foot off the other side. So it's a total of 15. But the other thing I want to address too, again, they were saying, the public was saying, how can you build such big homes in these lots? We are within the 25 percentage of hardcover. And I apologize, I'm not used to building on the lake, but those are all things that Nick coached me through and said, okay, if you're gonna try and design these homes, here's some things that you have to understand. And Nick told me it would be a challenge for a side yard setback. But once you dive into it and you start designing these homes, you realize if you don't get the 6 foot side yard setback and the 10 foot on the neighbor to the north, they're very, very challenging homes then to design, and we don't want to design a home that won't sell in today's market. And frankly, the house that I'm designing, it's set up with 2 main floor masters for my wife and then for my boy with special needs. So it is a little bit wider. We also, for sure, are meeting the roof structure. It's no taller than 35 feet. Nick did a good job of explaining that too. So we don't want these homes to stick out. We want them to blend in with the neighborhood too. But it's important to note that redevelopment does happen. And there are other lots on this block where redevelopment will happen. And it will be a question that comes up to the council again when redevelopment happens on the next cabin that doesn't own the lot to the north or to the south. I think why the public came out pretty strong on this is because this particular family owned 2 lots. And the vision, the way I read the public was, just combine them. And I don't know if that's exactly what the public wants either, because if they were combined, now you end up with a McMansion on the island. And there's not McMansions on the island, with the exception of 6 homes that were built in the last 2 years, but those were 100-foot wide lots, very deep lots. I would call those McMansions. Those foundations certainly aren't 1,700 square feet. So with that, I just wanted to make sure that I spelled out as much as I could. Again, I wasn't prepared. I'm sorry for how the meeting went down at the Planning Commission. And also, I want to respect my neighbors. The previous family certainly did respect the neighbors. The gentleman to the north has an easement granted by the family. His fence is 9 feet on the property. His house is only 9.6 feet off the property line. His garage is 4.2 feet. And his shed is encroached onto the previous family's property, or excuse me, the current family's property. But
All right.
there's an easement in place, and we're gonna work with him on that to make sure his fence stays in place.
Okay,
With that, we're here to answer any questions.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, what is the total square footage of the 3790 Chanted?
$3,790, which is gonna be our lake home. The foundation is $2,546, which again is under the 25% hardcover. The total square footage is 3,976. We have a very large bonus room upstairs. I shared with the Planning Commission and the public. My wife's from Chicago. We're hoping that the grandparents can come up here and stay for a month or 2 in the summer. And I have 3 nephews also, so we've done a very unique bonus room and created an additional suite upstairs for my in-laws. So we've maximized our square footage upstairs over the garage, which is very common when you do a slab on grade home.
All right, thank you. Any other questions of the developer?
No.
Okay, I just want to make a couple comments here to start out. You are aware of our ordinance, our city ordinance. We do not allow short-term rentals. You are aware of that, correct?
Certainly, that was noted by 2 different property owners on Enchanted Island.
Okay.
Of course, definitely go on the public record. These aren't rental properties.
Well, I am concerned because this is a 6-bedroom home that can sleep 20.
Sure.
So, you know,
And-
that doesn't
and I don't
sound
know
to me
legally-
like it's a small two children family home that you're just going to be using occasionally. I want to make it very clear, whatever is approved here, we do not allow short-term rentals.
And I
And
don't
I am
know-
sure that the residents in the area wouldn't appreciate it either. So just to be clear, just so that you are clear, so you understand, we do not allow short-term rentals.
I appreciate the comment, and I don't know legally if you're able to put a condition on there. I'm okay with any type of a condition like that.
We're not putting any condition on it, you just have to follow the ordinances.
Yeah,
All right.
it's not set up for a rental property,
Thank you.
so I don't know.
With that, let's tackle these variances maybe one at a time. So again, the Planning Commission, they were fine with the lakeside variance. The reason they were fine with that, and Mike, you can chime in here if you need to, or just nod your head. It seems like there's other homes in the area that are about that distance from the lake, and their comment was if it doesn't protrude beyond the other existing homes and hinder their views, that they would be fine with the front, with the lakeside setback. They also felt that, and I can attest to this as well after checking with David, that the 26 feet from the easement or from the road, and I don't even want to say right away, from the edge of the road, basically, since it's not really right away, but anyhow, from the edge of the road, that we have approved a variance recently for a home just a few lots down. And their driveway is also 26 feet. So I think because of the size of the lot, the lakeside setback and the roadside setback would be appropriate, if you're in agreement with that. I think, and the biggest discussion happened at the Planning Commission with the side yard setbacks. One of the things I need to point out is the fence. The fence that is encroaching on their property, that's been there for a lot of years, and they do have an easement to retain that fence there. And if you take that fence into account, this new house, as it is proposed here, is really only a few feet away from that fence. And if you look at the picture that was presented, that is a huge issue and a huge hazard as well. I don't even know how you would be able to do maintenance, or, again, I'm thinking if there were a fire, regardless, even if you had sprinkler system, there's just no way that a fire department could get equipment in there, or even, people to fight the fire from that 2 or 3 feet of space that they would have there. So I think that the residents, they said that there were a number of issues. One, that, this is a fire hazard. I know he addressed that to some extent, but I don't think that would necessarily address everything.
With regard to the fence and the easement, because of the easement, can they make the homeowner with the fence move the fence, or does the fence get to stay? How does that work?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the easement needs to be, it's in favor of the other property owner that has the fence on the property. So that other property owner would need to agree to to move the fence and extinguish the easement.
So that's one issue, but I mean, I just think that, and the developer, the builder is correct. There are other homes here where there are smaller lots like this, and we're going to have to be dealing with those lots as well in the future. So the question is, do we want to start doing 6-foot side yard or 10-foot side yard or 8-foot side yard setbacks? Maybe 15 is too much for these smaller lots, but 6 feet is maybe not enough. So that would be the question. I know every lot and every application has to be dealt with individually and on its own merits. I think that the side yard, I think the homes are lovely. They don't look huge. I'm not saying they do, but when you're talking about a nearly 4,000 square foot home on a nearly 60-foot wide lot, that's a lot of space.
So, Bonnie, my house is about that size, and I went outside with a tape measure from my edge of my garage to 6 feet, and I was obviously still in my property, and I cannot imagine my neighbor's property that close, even with another 6 feet. That, to me, with that size house, which is mine, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's too close. It doesn't, I don't agree with that.
Well, the reason I think it's too close is because, you might not remember this, but maybe it was before your time. We've had several neighborhood issues with homes being so close. One of the things that we had recently was a neighbor built a new home, put in a massive fireplace, totally to code, and had this huge, if you remember, blower, and it was right next to a neighbor's bedroom window. And it just ended up in a huge battle, and the city got sort of involved, and we kind of kept saying, hey, this is a neighborhood issue. You end up with neighborhood issues and neighbor to neighbor hatred almost when you have these small, tiny little setbacks. He's correct, there are other homes that don't meet these setbacks, but I don't know when those homes were built or why they were approved that way. It could have been done back in the 40s or 50s or even 60s.
87.
So even in 87, that was before our time and before, but I just don't think going forward that we should be approving side yard setbacks at 6 feet. That's just, it's a recipe for disaster, if not now, for sure for the future. But
Pre-destruction is more feet.
Comments? Do we have any more comments?
Well, want to say I stopped over there last night at the property and spoke to the neighbors. And they had a compromise situation as far as making a more narrow house, which I think is what we're sort of alluding to. And so, is that a possibility?
Well, that's not,
No.
I mean, it's,
Do you want to have open dialogue? If we do, Nick and I had that discussion.
Okay.
I didn't bring a plan tonight because it wouldn't fit in with the neighborhood characteristic.
Okay.
It's all garage, front doors on the side of the house. Can you build a long tunnel, trailer park type home? Sure you can. It doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. And I wouldn't build it. I wouldn't put our name on it.
thank you. So any other questions or comments? I'll just allow a couple of comments from the public. Mr. Grott?
I'm Ron Grote. I'm from 3850 Enchanted Lane. I'll just give you my story briefly. I bought a cabin on the lake in 1988 or 89. I built a 20-foot wide home according to code. It's a lovely home. It's now my primary residence. Yes, it has a garage on the road and a door on the side. But it's a beautiful home. I had the tax assessor out because we had raised, the taxes are going up. And he said, hey, this is a bowling alley house, but it's a really nice bowling alley house. So it's possible. I purchased the lot next to me, and the lot that I purchased had a turn-of-the-century cabin, which is my neighbor to the north, has exactly the same house that I tore down and built my 20-foot wide house. The neighbor to the south of me had a little cabin that was a turn-of-the-century Wards or Sears thing. I left it there. And then I said I want a little more space. I combined the lots. I built a large garage with a storage area, and I kept my cabin. So there are a variety of different permutations that will go on, but I'm here to tell you that building a 20-foot wide house on a 50-foot lot fits into the neighborhood, and it's a damn nice house.
Thank you. We also have Mickey Kren, is it?
I don't think I have anything new to say from last time.
All right, okay. And
Or
then,
if you'd like me to, I'll say what I said last time.
sure, go ahead.
3830 Enchanted Lane. We looked extensively when we bought 17 years ago, and we are 2 doors down from the empty lots. And we didn't want Douglas Beach because they're crammed on top of each other. And also the Cook's Bay area, they're just too close. And then my question is, we have wells, and when your electricity goes out, guess what, your well pump doesn't work, so what do you do then about a sprinkler? By your system, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Generator,
Yeah.
just like I have in Florida. Generator, when a hurricane comes through, it's very important. When you have a special needs boy, you really want to make sure you have power.
Okay. And then we have Nancy Rigelhoff.
I'm Nancy Riddlehoff. I live at.
Come, wait until you get there. Thank you.
Sorry. I'm Nancy Riddlehoff. I live at 3780 Enchanted Lane, and thanks for letting us speak again. We are the property owner with the fence easement, and some of the specs aren't quite straight. Actually, the fence is 8 feet, and that's all the way down at the lake. And as it goes to the road, it goes to, much less. And they gave us a foot to maintain the fence on their side of the yard. So it's really not it's not 9 feet, it's 8. And then our house was built in the 80s. And according to your files, it was built to the 15-foot setbacks, according to the city's files.
Okay.
So it was built to the setbacks then. There were other houses that were built in the 80s that were also built to the correct setbacks in the neighborhood. I think the only houses that are not built to those setbacks are the old cabins that were built before the
All right, thank you. And then Mr. Steve Shop, did you want to add a few comments?
Steve Shoup, 3780
sorry.
Enchanted Lane. Couple of things. Sorry to hear I live in a trailer park. It's a pretty nice trailer park. Our house was, excuse me, the lot was 40 feet wide. And when they tore the cabin down, the people we bought it from bought 15 feet from the neighbors. So we'd have enough space to put a home on there, which is 24 feet wide. Seems to be sufficient on a 55-foot wide lot. So I don't know, where did I hear the square footage for the foundation? For this, their lot is, next door is 5 feet wider. We have a 24 by 40 foot, so less than 1,000 square foot footprint. I believe I heard they want 2,500. I don't know, that seems a little excessive to me, but I don't know how they meant the hardcover that way, but we seem to be conforming with our lot. We really enjoy new neighbors and hope we can be good neighbors to them.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Hi, Bruce Phillipson, live at 3740 Lee Road, which is just a street off of where this property is. And my concerns here are maintaining the nature of our neighborhood. 6-foot side lots does not fit in. And you know, they've already mentioned some of the fire hazard issues. I'd also wonder about snow removal. The two roofs coming together with a total of maybe 12 feet between them, being it's a seasonal house, what's going to happen to that snow when that happens? And for the future, although the person that's building the house now plans to live there for who knows how long, what is going to happen to the marketability of those houses in the future when someone decides to move and says, I only have a 6-foot side lot? So my recommendation is 6 foot is not adequate. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, yes?
Hi there, my name's Sarah Bennett. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Frederickson and Byron. Do you need my business office address? Is that okay?
That would be great, yeah.
Okay, 60 South 6th Street. It's a tongue twister, Suite 1500, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Thank
I
you.
represent the owner of the property, the Harriet Ellis Trust, and the trustees of the trust. I did send an email to Nick to let him know I would be coming, so I wouldn't catch anyone off guard. I understand he's not at the meeting tonight, so I'm just gonna take a few moments, Madam Mayor and council members and the public, just to address a couple of other things. I think that Mr. Fair did a wonderful job really walking through how this property is going to be set up and gave a very good comparison about the previous dwellings that were located on the property in conjunction with what is proposed in terms of the side yard setbacks. I was not at the planning commission meeting. I didn't have an opportunity to watch it online because it's not uploaded yet, but I did read the minutes. And it seems like everything here is coming down to the setbacks, the set up to the side yard. It's not enough for the council to deny this just because they don't like it. I want to bring us back to when a variance needs to be granted and to walk through that from a legal perspective and point out a couple of things. A variance is permitted when it's in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the chapter and when it's consistent with a comprehensive plan, and if there are practical difficulties present in developing the property. I think that Mr. Fair, the applicant, who's under contract with my client, has shown that there are practical difficulties with these lots. I really need to drive home the point that my client owns 2 taxable parcels. These are 2 separate PIDs. and my client's under no legal obligation to ever combine these lots. So if there is no, if they keep these parcels separate, which is their intent as of today, these lots are vacant, okay? And they're either going to sit there and be vacant, or they're going to be sold to someone to build a home that they want to live in and reside in, as the applicant does, and potentially sell another home. And the situation is only going to represent itself if we stick with the two separate parcels, which is my client's intention. The practical difficulties exist with the soil. We've heard that there cannot be a basement with this type of soil, and so we need to have a two-story home. What the applicant is proposing is a 35-foot structure, which is conforming with the requirements, and the hardcover is conforming in the 25%, okay? So we've got two conforming issues here. We don't have a problem with the front yard side, the lake side, or the street side. It all comes down to the side yard setbacks. And there's a difficulty there if we're going to keep the taxable parcels separate. And so this issue is going to keep coming up. And so what I would urge council and Madam Mayor is to work with this applicant who's clearly spent so much time, money, and effort in creating creative conditions and solutions to these problems. What I've heard tonight is that there's some serious concerns with fire safety hazards. I've got to think in modern day that we could work together in thinking through some conditions like sprinkler systems, requiring annual inspections to make sure that the property is compliant with the fire code and the like, things like that. If there are privacy concerns, we have the fence that separates Mr. Shoup and Ms. Rigglehoff's property. I know all about that fence. I'm the one who drafted the easement agreement. I'm very familiar with all of these properties based on my research. So if there are issues like we're feeling too close to the neighbors, we could do landscaping, we could do fencing, we could mandate snow removal, compliance with the code. So I urge the council to think creatively about adopting conditions, because the situation isn't going anywhere. We have the two lots, they're vacant. The structures that were there before were non-conforming, they were unsightly. If you look at them online, they were dilapidated, they were run down. Wouldn't it be better for the neighborhood to build something that fits in and that, while maybe bigger, I think we can all acknowledge that, while maybe bigger than what was there, still is charming and still adopts the locality of the neighborhood on Enchanted Island. So I would urge the council to think through those things. My last point, and then I will sit down, is that the public and the city can't have it both ways. You either have a lot combination and a McMansion, which no one's gonna be happy about that. We'd be back up here and someone would be upset because the structure is too large. It could interfere with their side of the lake. It doesn't fit in, again, same thing with the intent and harmony. It doesn't fit in with the locality of the neighborhood. Or we could work with what we have and be creative to try to get two smaller homes. Yes, bigger than what was there previously, but two smaller homes for someone who sounds like he really, really wants to be there with his family, and sell the other home to what I would assume another family who really wants to live in this neighborhood. So I urge creativity and cooperation and conditions, because I just don't think the situation is really going to change. And my client legally cannot be forced to combine two taxable lots. Thanks so much.
Okay. So, a few things. You said it was the soils. It's actually the water table, just so you know. The water table is too high for a basement.
Great.
Thank you. So you also mentioned general harmony with the plan or with the neighborhood. I think that is one of our issues. Again, stating that once we go down this path for 6-foot setbacks, I think we're just asking for a whole lot of trouble and a whole lot of issues. The other issue that keeps coming up, and practical difficulty, The practical difficulty here is that this is a 6-bedroom home, nearly 4,000 square feet. That's the practical difficulty. It's not the lot. You could build a lovely home here, and we would be willing to work with the builder on less than, or side setbacks less than 15 feet, but 6 feet is not going to cut it. That's where I'm coming from. If there's something else, I know the Planning Commission said that. They said, maybe it's 10 feet, maybe it's 12 feet, but 6 feet is, and you said you could plant something. You can't plant anything in 6 feet. I can tell you right now, there is very little, and then if you do, now you're cutting off all of your access from the street side to the lake side. So you're just, and what if there's some kind of a medical emergency where they have to get to the lake side? I mean, there's all these other issues that this wide home presents itself. There are other plans. I did this too for a living. I know there's other plans here that would be perfectly suited for a family with 2 children, one with physical needs, perfectly suited that we could actually work together on and come together on and have it be beautiful. But I just have a real hard time saying, okay, fine, you can have a 4,000 square foot house with 6-foot setbacks. I can't do that. The previous cabins are now gone. And yes, maybe any home that's built here, regardless of this, even if it was a 20-foot wide house, would be better than the cabins that were here. There's too many bedrooms. Something that sleeps 20 people, I have an issue with that. And I do still think, regardless of whether you put in sprinkler systems, and we're certainly not going to do fire inspections on an annual basis or regular basis. That would be an intrusion of privacy, and there's just no way that that's going to happen. The maintenance issue on 6 feet would also be an issue. There isn't 6 feet between the house and the fence. In some areas, it's only like 2 or 3 feet. I mean, the list goes on. It's not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. The noise between the 2 homes, particularly the 3790 and the 3800, would 12 feet apart. These are all the issues why I think we need to work on a different setback. No, I'm not going to argue with you. This isn't. I understand that. This is not the same neighborhood, and I'm not going to argue with you, and this is not a debate. Thank you. Council? No, you can't. This is a discussion now from the council. Just give me, just hold on, hold on.
Well, I find it interesting, you keep bringing up that, combining these lots. Council has not mentioned combining the lots. We don't expect anyone to combine the lots.
So I'm going to speak to that because if you read the Planning Commission meeting minutes, and my client and the applicant were at the meeting, is that was inferred at least once, if not twice, that a better solution would be to combine the lots.
They asked if you wanted to combine the lots, and
So
the applicant, yeah.
Council has not suggested you do that.
Sure, I'm just referencing what came up at Planning Commission and trying to get in front of that issue, because that.
We're not asking you to
We
combine.
haven't asked you to combine the lots. We have not brought it up.
I'm just
You don't have to get in
bringing
front
up
of it. It hasn't been addressed, it hasn't
Sure,
been issued.
it was addressed at Planning
Which we
Commission.
know, we read the notes.
Sure.
We aren't proposing that he
I
does that.
was not.
All right,
Ms.
enough,
Ryan, I wasn't-
enough.
I wasn't suggesting
Stop,
that.
stop. Thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Could I ask one question?
Okay,
How should the applicant and my client, so the applicant spent many hours and resources working with the city planner on this development, numerous meetings, phone calls, to create these proposed dwellings. So moving forward, hypothetically speaking only, if the council approves the front yard setback and the street setback, but not the side yard setback, how is the applicant supposed to move forward with the plan, with the city planner in light of council's comments, like, how is this gonna work together moving forward? I'm just trying to understand constructively.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We will answer that question. So this evening, council will give staff direction. So I just want to make this clear. Staff does a great job in working with builders and developers and trying to be amenable as best as possible and trying to interpret what they think the council might accept. They can't read our minds. And we also have to take a lot of other things into consideration. So having said that, I think what we would be willing to do tonight is give you and your client and the builder some direction as to what we might feel would be appropriate for setbacks. We understand that in today's market, 15-foot setbacks might not be appropriate, but maybe 12-foot setbacks are, or maybe a 15-foot setback on the north side, and maybe a 20-foot setback between the two homes might be appropriate between the two new homes. I mean, but I think I'm hearing loud and clear from everybody, 6 is not going to do it. So if you want a number, we can give you some kind of an idea as to what we think might be in the realm of an opportunity. I think you've heard that the 3790 Enchanted proposed house, that is just simply too large. We can't grant variances. I'm not prepared to grant a variance for a 6-bedroom house when you could potentially build a very lovely home for a lot less square footage with larger setback requirements. So having said that, do you have any, if they came in with plans for, let's say on the 3790 from the property line, let's say it was 12 to 13 feet
On the fence side.
on the fence side, so they would still only have about 5 or 6 feet between the fence and the house, but from the property line, it would be more like 12 or 13. And then on the south side, if the south side of 3790 were somewhere between 10 and 12, and then the next house, the 3800, also had 10 and 12 on that side, that would give them anywhere from 20 to 24 foot separation. And then on the south side of 3800, because it is a smaller lot, I get that, maybe it would be a 12-foot setback versus the 15. Is that something we can?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That's kind of the direction we're going to be giving you. You have to go back to the drawing board if you wish and come back with something like that. I think this evening what we're going to do is have staff pass bring back a resolution to approve the lakeside setback and the street side setback. And we're giving you direction on the side setbacks for 3790 and 3800. Sarah, is that sufficient?
Madam Mayor, in the event the applicant does not want to agree to amend their application for the side yard setbacks, do you want staff to bring back a resolution of denial for the side yard setback?
Yes.
Yes.
And then
Thank
if you could, I've been taking notes during your conversation, but if you have any more findings you would like to include in that resolution, we need to include findings, which are reasons for the denial of that particular variance. That would be helpful to staff as well.
Okay. Anything else? Well, we mentioned the fire hazard. We mentioned the house could be smaller and have smaller or larger setbacks. I felt that, quite honestly, that it's going to be hard to approve a variance for a 6-bedroom home. It's not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. It's generally not in harmony with the neighborhood. There is a practical difficulty, but not for 6-foot setbacks. And also there is the noise factor when you only have 6-foot setbacks. I think that covers it. Okay. So do we make a motion? Okay, is there a motion then to direct staff to bring back the resolutions with findings?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. Thank you.
Do one for each property, or-
Well, That's for both properties. Did you want a motion for both properties?
Madam Mayor, if that's amenable to the rest of the council, we can note that that direction is for both of the properties, and then, that we will bring back 2 resolutions of approval for the lakeside and the right-of-way variances, and that we will bring back a resolution of denial for the side yard setbacks for both properties unless the applicant is agreeable to amending the application for
Okay.
lesser setbacks.
Thank you. All right. With that, that concludes those items, business items. And we will move on to administrative items, staff reports.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the only one we have tonight is update on our road projects, ones that are wrapping up or in progress. So I'll pass it on to Ms. Fauski.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger, Mayor Whalen, members of council. So the overlay project and the reclaim project, basically the remaining item is restoration. So the areas were seeded because it was so hot and dry this summer. And we're not seeing things pop up quite yet, particularly on the mill and overlay area. We're going to do some measurements and provide the contractor with a list of locations that we expect to see reseeded, and then probably a hydro mulch so we can keep some of that moisture in and let it go dormant. So we're going to have some discussions on how to get those areas restored, because we're just not seeing the precipitation that we need to get these things going. But then I also drove the reclamation project, and they did like a hydro mulch on it. So hopefully that area will fare a little bit better. If not in the spring, we'll just have another list of areas to clean up. With the reconstruction project, the latest update as of this afternoon is that the water main and water services are complete now. So that is good news. That's the deep excavations that occur. The storm sewer, they should be finishing up. If they didn't finish it up later today, hopefully tomorrow on phase B2, that southern area of Morning View there. And then we would be getting the street prepared, so the subgrades, so the sand section, the class 5 gravel. They'll be looking to come in on Morning View Court on Friday. So from the cul-de-sac and move out towards the street. Reason we want to get through there is there's a school bus stop at that corner. We've successfully had that school bus turn around in Morning View Court. So far this week, we've been working very closely with the school district busing company. But we want to get that area finished up so that they can get on their regular route. And then early next week, we would look at having the cul-de-sac in phase A. So it's that little, it's an unnamed cul-de-sac off Morning View, and then move south to finish up part, the remainder of phase A, and then phase B all the way down. And then looking at getting the curb scheduled in a couple weeks. And so that's when we really start to see things moving, is get that curb in there. And we're going to try to get paving done as soon as possible, but we do need that curb to cure before we can start running pavers next to it.
So Ms. Fauski, the water main is complete through phase A, B, and C.
Correct.
Okay, so then the sub-base, when will the entire area be done with the sub-base?
We are looking at, if everything goes well, I believe through the end of next week. So that they would be able to, so that it would be
14, 15 September, approximately.
That sounds correct, because yes, that would be correct.
Tomorrow's the 7th, so 14, 15, okay.
Yes.
And then after that, then you're gonna come in with the curb and gutter.
Correct. How long
Okay.
does that take to cure? Typically 14 days, but what we're going to do in this instance is so we test those to make sure that it's reached the strength that the city's paying for with the curb and gutter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take extra samples, and probably after 5 days, we're hoping, we've historically been seeing strengths that are adequate strengths after 5 days. So we're hoping that's the case then, and so we'll be talking about it at our weekly meeting tomorrow. And which we have been talking about for the past 2 weeks with the curb and gutter, and talking about doing the extra testing so that they know the intent is we're going to push to get the paving done once we get those passing results on the curb and gutter.
So how long does it take to do the curb and gutter throughout the entire project area?
Boy,
A
that's a
week?
good question.
A week.
A week?
I would
They can
think
put the whole
so,
thing in a
because,
week.
yeah, they can.
Barring rain or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, that's, well, that's no issue, yeah, right, unfortunately. So we're talking about the 1st of October, basically, the curb and gutter would be done, roughly.
Well, the curb and gutter installation would start the week of the 18th.
18th.
So then we would be looking at the first part of October for paving.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. And then, how long does it take for paving? Another week
If
for the
that.
first
For
layer?
the first lift.
How long do you want to let the first lift sit before you do the second lift?
You could go right
you could do
over
it
if
right
you
away?
wanted to.
We could, we want to, I mean, everything that would be moving would have already moved through phase A and phase C.
What they would normally do is they would come in and do all the restoration once that base lift is in.
Mm-hmm,
Do restoration of curbs and that type stuff, and then put the wear on.
mm-hmm, right. Okay. So we're looking at mid-October for the second lift.
Correct.
Okay.
And the only foreseeable delay would be some rain happening. Correct.
Or if the curb needs the
Full
longer
2
than
weeks,
5 days or
correct.
whatever, but
And
we still
and-
have 2 extra weeks in there.
Yes, and we did look into alternatives in concrete, so you can get, so this is, the 14-day cure is a typical concrete. Now, they call it high early, it's a different mix, it's
Right.
much more expensive. And talking to materials folks, it's also a little more brittle. So we wanted to look at, if we're seeing some strengths in the regular concrete come in after hopefully 5 days, maybe 7 days, that would be a better product.
Okay. All right. And North Arm does look great. I drove it the other day. Looks great. All right. Anything else?
That's all I have in the
All
mirror.
right, thanks. That's it? All right. With that, staff reports, or council reports?
I have a number of Gillespie Center meetings coming up, and there'll be there's a rummage sale, I believe, in early October, and they have hired an event planner.
Oh,
so
good.
This is super positive.
Yeah.
And so the meeting for that, to get things going with more rentals and everything, is this coming Monday. And then the next day, we have a board meeting, and then we'll be starting to put plans together for the activities for the rest of the year.
Good, great. Thank you.
Jasper and I attended the Mound Fire meeting on August 24th to discuss the budget as we covered in the work session. The increase in the budget from the original plan was for the additional 11 sets of turnout gear to pay for the Chevy Tahoe duty vehicle this year instead of in 2 years, and then the new fire bay exhaust system, which was obviously needed. Mound Fire is having their open house on 10/4, so any little kids who wants to come out, it's pretty fun, and they should have their new heavy-duty rescue pumper then, fingers crossed. And they have the fire fundraiser golf event on 9/22. I'm not sure if there's still openings, but if anybody goes who wants to have fun, I will be out of the country. That's it.
So just FYI, last time we talked about making a donation to the fire fund, and apparently we can't do that legally. So, Sarah, so our attorney has told us state statute says that we cannot donate to 501c3s. So I will have to be the bearer of bad news. So that's, yeah. So coming up, I have Northwest League next week. A couple other things. Friday morning, I'll be at a regional council mayor's meeting. Well, a mayor's meeting for the ones in our district with Dean Phillips, Congressman Phillips, and that's about it for now. So that's it. With that, we can be adjourned if there's a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike, for attending.